You won't believe it, but I got an early review key for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and have been playing for about 30 hours. Review key was provided by the publisher Plaion with a couple of NDAs. But getting a key never affects my honest opinion, and it won't affect it now, no matter how big this is for the channel. I owe it to my viewers to always be constructively critical with no bias. One NDA applies to this video, where I can talk about the game up until the first proper quest of the main story. So I've been doing everything I can outside the main story and still haven't finished even half the side quests. That is why this is not a full review, more of a preview, first impression, early review, however you like. I still haven't seen things like sieges and haven't found the dog yet to know to what extent those mechanics work. Some of you cow-milking bastards might have a raised eyebrow now with a valid question. What the fuck have you been doing then for 30 hours? Just playing the game, enjoying every bit of it as much as possible. Doing quests, stealing horses, fighting bandits, improving the character, thievery, getting rich, avoiding a couple villages due to them catching me doing bad stuff, killing a guard, practicing archery, alchemy, sword fighting, blacksmithing, enjoying walking through beautiful forests. I have to warn everyone that KCD2 is pure evil. It hates that the player might have any responsibilities in life because the game is gonna do everything in its power to take you away from the real world, loved ones, chores, and even basic necessities like eating. And trust me when I say that KCD2 has all the power to do just that. This game is nuts. One of the most immersive experiences I've had in a long time. Say goodbye to everything that you know and love, because nothing is going to be more important than KCD2 after you start playing. Where to even start? Maybe most are interested in how the game is from a technical standpoint. I've been playing on PC, so I can only talk about the PC platform. It looks beautiful even on medium to high settings. Truly, the game is stunning. I've mentioned earlier how I've been walking through the forest and enjoying such small things in this game. Mainly because it's so beautiful, with a great atmosphere. Sound effects like birds chirping, river flowing, fantastic lighting, or scary thunderstorms with very realistic accompanying sound effects that might scare the player at times. Next to beautiful nature, characters and objects look fantastic as well. Whole world is very immersive. Villages are full of people doing their thing. Working in the fields, gardens, getting drunk in the tavern, washing clothes, stumbling drunk on the streets, passers-by picking up dropped items, even equipping gear at times, guards warning Henry to keep it peaceful, random NPCs acknowledging Henry. With the amount of realistic details for the time period in every village, like the way houses are structured, tools used, type of meals cooked, domestic animals present, NPCs conversing, it is almost impossible not to feel like one of the people from that time. I love little details like NPCs reacting to players not having pants equipped. Then Henry can reply in an apologetic or threatening way, affecting the reputation with the village people. World of KCD2 is very vibrant and alive, with Henry being an active part of it and not just a bystander. But how does the game perform? Is it full of bugs? Granted, this is a pre-release version, so there's gonna be a release date patch without a doubt that fixes bugs and improves performance. First, I have to commend the fact that the game hasn't crashed once, and considering how the saving system works, that's important. Regarding bugs, I've only seen one so far, and that is when selling stolen horses to nomads. Conversation didn't trigger as it should. Outside of that instance, all the quests I've done so far worked flawlessly, but bear in mind it's only for very early game. Don't know yet how the bugs are for later content. Framerate wise, game could be better, and I'm sure it will be eventually. I've played with lots of settings to get the game to behave more stable and landed somewhere between medium and high settings. Game still looked incredible and with vastly more stable framerate. On high settings it was dipping about 20-30 frames per second too often. Especially in fights versus couple enemies at once, where it's a problem and can affect the outcome. Thankfully plenty of settings to choose from to improve the performance, but patch is needed, no doubt. Not to make the game playable or anything like that, because it's already in a good state pre-release, but to make it smoother. There's also an occasional graphical glitch with flickering black color and broken animations, but nothing that frequent. KCD2 is already at a much better state overall compared to KCD1 release date version. By the way, my PC configuration is Radeon RX 6800 XT, Ryzen 9 5900X CPU and 32GB of RAM. Not gonna spend time talking about audio work like voiceovers, sound effects and music because it's stellar. Voiceovers, especially with the different accents, languages and cultures represented. Simply amazing. What I'm gonna talk about next is the writing. Can't comment much outside of the prologue on main quests because I haven't progressed due to NDA, but I can talk about side quests done and how the writing in those is. I love quests in KCD2 because they last for a while, can have different outcomes, and it's almost never as simple as it might seem at first. Each quest is carefully handcrafted with a small story behind it that doesn't finish just like that. Quest story progression is nicely done as the game simply doesn't do generic things early on. Add to that fantastic NPCs with their own unique personalities but also ways to interact with Henry in a different way depending on how Henry talks with them. If Henry pushes their buttons, even the nicest, most helpful quest NPCs are gonna get angry at the player. There's so much unique text in each quest-related conversation which keeps the player interested to learn more and to see where it all goes in the end. And the humor is brilliant. I laughed out loud many times, even heard my girl laughing from the other room as she overheard some of the conversations through the speakers. Whether it is something relating to the miller that wants to build a golem out of flour, getting drunk with humans in the woods, stealing a pole from the village, saving lives of people in love that can't have it in a normal way, helping a drunken huntsman and his family, persuading wife to let her husband get into the fighting ring so you can beat 7 shades of shit out of him. And all of that can be done in different ways depending on the player's success through the dialogue.
You're drunk out of your minds, aren't you?
Well, maybe a little bit.
I should have known.
But just to muster up some courage.
Courage? What for?
Well...
Spit it out. What does he want this Arsiak?
Yasak.
Yasak, right.
Miért egyeztem bele ebbe?
He says he likes you a lot. Because you have... eyes... and hair. Oh, pretty eyes and hair, I mean. And he also says your teeth are like stars in the night sky. Because they're, yellow and far apart.
You said what about me?
Csak mondd meg neki, hogy szép, és hogy tetszik nekem.
Henry can intimidate, persuade, coerce in couple ways. Persuasion and coercion depend mainly on speech stat. Presence and intimidation depends on the quality of gear equipped. If you're clean, then presence stat is higher. If you're more bloody and dirty, the intimidation stat is higher. If Henry has a low reputation in a village, then he can use the domination speech technique that is derived from charisma. Charisma depends on the type of gear equipped. Best of all, high stat doesn't mean it's gonna lead to permanent success with the NPCs. No matter how high intimidation stat is, trying to intimidate 3 heavily armed enemies is not gonna work in most cases because it wouldn't make sense. Also, smarter NPCs won't be easily persuaded. Against someone like the king or queen, presence stat won't do much. So Henry needs to read the situation to recognize the weaknesses and strengths of people he's talking with. Dialogue system is simply brilliant, proper RPG system with depth and engaging as well due to quality of the writing. When we add engaging dialogue, unique personalities, fantastic voiceovers, detailed world, beautiful vegetation, highly detailed villages, reactionary NPCs, fantastic sound effects and music, vibrant places, highly detailed systems, KCD2 quickly becomes one of the most immersive experiences in gaming at the moment. First-person perspective adds to it too. The bloody thing is gonna drag you in like quicksand and never let go. We are essentially assembling Henry's life and living it through the screen in a very immersive way through brilliantly depicted realistic 15th century medieval life in Bohemia.
Son, your ma should have dumped you on the manure heap the moment you were born. What's gonna happen with that loot?
Use it for firewood. It'll burn nicely with that lacquer.
What? Henry, sick him! I mean, give him what for?
Hey, why don't we all just simmer down? After all, it was an accident.
Yeah, of course it was an accident. Then I wanted to give it a stroke.
There you go. I mean, look at him. Drunk as a lord. Stinks to high heaven.
Who? Me?
See? He doesn't know which way is up. He's got all the dexterity of a donkey.
Donkey? I'll give you donkey, you goose.
Now let's talk about gameplay. Outside combat we have stealth, horse riding and crafting in the early game. Stealth is well done with many factors affecting it. Type of clothes, time of day, rain that muffles noise and reduces visibility, lockpick noise, vegetation, and from first person perspective stealth hits different in an immersive game like this. I love stealth in games, but many fail at that. For example, I remember playing Metro, a game series that I adore, and being pissed at how bad the stealth was in it, when it should be a huge factor in such an atmospheric game. In KCD2 I don't have big critiques so far regarding stealth, but still haven't tried archery through stealth, so don't know how that's gonna be. Maybe choking the enemy unconscious could have been done better animation wise, as it is a bit unconvincing, and killing people during their sleep is weird because the stab goes a bit too high from the heart and not actually in the heart. Would be nice to see those two animations improved. Also, lockpicking minigame can be problematic, especially with gamepad, but with higher thievery skill it might get easier. I'll see later how it performs on higher levels. Crime and punishment system is deep and makes thievery more interesting overall because of fear of being caught. If Henry gets caught for petty theft, the least he needs to do is pay the fine. Next step is being chained for a day in a public place. Other forms are branding for repeated offenses, which is going to affect reputation everywhere he goes. Last but not least are the gallows. Well thought out system. What is interesting also is to what degree NPCs are going to be aware of Henry's crimes. If someone sees him in a house where something gets stolen afterwards, they are going to connect the dots and warn the guards, which then puts a bounty on Henry. Upon entering that village again, guards are going to initiate the punishment. After some time has passed with Henry not going back to the place where he committed the crime, it gets erased. What I love is that doing crime in one village means nothing to other villages. Still haven't been branded to know how other villages would react to that, but there's plenty of time to do so. Interesting system that works great with the setting. Horse riding is solid, with the ability for horses to follow a path, which makes things a lot easier and user-friendly. Player just needs to pay attention, not to exhaust the horse, and that's about it. Turning is a bit of a problem in camps and narrow paths, as horses can get stuck amongst many things, but it's the least frequent movement you'll be doing with a horse anyway. Haven't tried fighting from the horse yet because I was afraid to lose the bastard and because I like on foot combat a lot, so I don't want to miss out on that whenever there's a chance. Crafting is some of the most immersive crafting in gaming, because of how realistic it all looks. Look, I'm not dumb to think that's the actual process for alchemy and blacksmithing, as the time preparing and doing all of that has been drastically shortened, and that is a good thing. Otherwise crafting would take too much time. This way we have engaging minigames that can bring Henry's economic status up with some time invested. Raising the alchemy and blacksmithing skill is going to make the process more successful, which in turn is going to give better profits. So not only that potions and weapons crafted help Henry in his adventure, but also help with the finances. Next to alchemy and blacksmithing, there's also a sharpening wheel for weapons, drying racks for herbs, and meat with probably some more stuff available that I haven't seen yet. Crafting is really well done in my opinion, as it fits the setting perfectly, the process makes sense, and it's rewarding. Now let's talk about combat. It's the same principle from the first game, and that's awesome because it still is one of the best combat systems for a medieval setting in gaming. It's engaging to the maximum. Skill matters because of attack mixing, reactions are important for defensive maneuvers, clash of weapons is fantastic, weapon choices matter. If you haven't played the first game, this is how it works. When combat starts, a rosette UI pops up that shows points of attack. For some reason there is no option to turn the UI off at the moment. Don't know why, as it would create quite an immersive experience fighting without the rosette UI. Henry then chooses points of attack with the look controls. By combining certain directional combinations, combos can be performed whose last attack is unblockable. Combos can only be performed if the enemy allows Henry to attack 3 times without retaliating in the meantime. Defensively, Henry blocks attacks, perfect blocks, counters and dodges. These are the bases of combat. Then we get to advanced stuff like feinting and clinch work, where combat goes to another level. That is why I'm saying it's not just level based, but skill based as well. Mixing things up is not easy because of all the chaos during the fight. Usually we are fighting more than one enemy at a time, which can be difficult to manage. So movement and positioning plays a huge factor. Henry can't let himself be surrounded, otherwise he won't be able to block hits from the back and side. It's also a good motivation to not prolong combat but to finish enemies fast as possible. That means waiting for the perfect block and riposte is not that smart. It can be a strategy, but not an effective one, because enemies will parry back, which is going to lead to multiple parried attacks from both you and the enemy, which drains stamina. Against more than one enemy, that's a bad position to be in. Developers have found a way with the counter parry method to motivate players to attack more and not just to be on the defensive. If we look at the combat from a closer perspective, then we can see how detailed it is by how many things it allows. Attack from each side takes a certain amount of time for animation to play out. Attack from the bottom direction is usually very fast. Talking about swords here, as I haven't been playing with anything else yet. So I'm primarily playing with short swords that have faster animations, which allows me to intercept attacks. When the enemy starts their attacks, I can quickly hit them while they are wide open trying to hit me. That's because it's a short sword in question, with quick animations. Or by feinting, I can attack quickly from the other side, which is effective against everyone, especially shielded opponents. Start from the shield side and finish the attack from the weapon side. Combining such things as feints and interceptions with combos, clinch, dodge and riposte leads to one of the most engaging combat systems ever that I personally adore. AI is competent, as they will not go down fast and will challenge the player with a variety of attacks. Expect plenty of ripostes and feints from them too. Haven't seen them initiate clinching yet, which would be great to add to their arsenal, so that they are capable of mixing more things to make it even more interesting. Can't wait to try all the other weapons to see how it makes combat different. Even though combat is fantastic, it can still be a bit clunky. As soon as Rosette UI pops up, it's fine. But when there's need to chase the enemy down or do anything when Rosette UI is not active, it all turns into a giant mess. Especially against wolves and dogs. Enemies don't get hit when they should. UI pops in and out, which adds to the clunkiness, which is a real shame. It won't affect combat enjoyment in a drastic way because usually combat is over by the time it all becomes a mess, but it can still be frustrating to deal with. Also, I've tried playing with gamepad and keyboard and mouse, and on PC gamepad seems a bit unresponsive in fights. Keyboard and mouse offer the better experience. Last thing to talk about is the character progression that I'm still on the fence about. Basically, Henry increases stats by doing certain things connected to that stat. For example, sneaking around increases stealth and agility. Fighting increases strength. Taking damage increases vitality. Using alchemy increases alchemy. You get the point. Then, when the stat levels up, perk points are acquired that can be used to acquire perks. The system is very linear from what I've experienced so far, which is why I can't give any judgment yet because it's too early. Need to see way more to understand better how it evolves and plays out. Couple things I would also like them to add in the release version. Custom marker placement on the map and fast travel to the first place in the game with your bed, which is Božena's house. Conclusion for this early impression, which is weird to say considering I got 30 hours of playtime already, is that Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is an absolute joy to play. I'm having a blast and can't wait to see where the game takes us in terms of story and gameplay progression. It's such a well-designed game that needs to be praised. I was most afraid of technical issues, but even in this pre-release version, it's decent in that aspect. Expect a full review when I'm done with the game and tons of guides in the meantime. Got a couple prepared already. I'm really glad to say that KCD2 is phenomenal so far and that hype is justified. Let's see how far it can take us. Check the description for Patreon subscribes or merch, and thanks for watching.